Hello everyone, and welcome to this Beyond video clip featuring super stock and factory experimental drag racing during the mid-1960s. Now our first stop is North Carolina's Piedmont Dragway, where Ronnie Sachs in a 64 Comet will be taking on Richard Petty with a 65 Hemi Barracuda.
Richard was really getting the knack of drag racing and was becoming a serious threat to all the big names, including Sachs and Martin. This day belonged to Sachs, but Richard would be heard from again.
The fans at Piedmont wanted a rematch between Sachs and Petty, and they got it on the first week of January in 1965. But the results on the top end were not the same.
As January of '65 was coming to a close, Sachs and Martin brought out their new altered wheelbase 65 Hemi Plymouth. The team had left Mercury because of some difficulty in contract language and immediately signed on with Chrysler. This radical wheelbase design was so strange that people started calling the cars funny, thus the term funny car was born. This day was not to be very funny for T-Bolt driver Lee Malcolmus. The Pennsylvania racer had signed on for a match race with Sachs, but tragedy struck on his first pass down the left lane. The car had veered off the track and flipped end over end a total of 6 times before coming to rest. Malcolmus was rushed to the Duke University Hospital, where he was treated for multiple injuries, including a broken neck. Cool February air was heated by the fire of a Ford Mopar factory drag war. Mustangs like the Wayne Jones Ford were packed with 427 cubic inches. And a new weapon was unveiled by Dino Don Nicholson. An AFX Comet loaded up with an overhead cam 427 bullet. Mopar's Sachs and Martin were unimpressed. Their J. King prepared Hemi knocked off the Fords one by one. On this day, Dino had as much trouble trying to figure out the Piedmont racing service as he did the Mopar of Sachs and Martin. The large crowd of spectators cheered as the hometown Sachs weighed another one on the Mercury. About the time spring was arriving in North Carolina, Piedmont welcomed some of the nation's hottest running superstock and FX racers.
First up is Carlsbad, New Mexico's favorite son, Dickie Harrell, and his 427 powered Chevy 2.
His opponent was Ford employee and drag racer Dick Brannon.
A heads-up race in the first round found the homemade Chevy 2 much quicker than the factory Mustang. Since Piedmont did not have an electric Christmas tree, Brannon's Mustang was given a 2-car length spot down the track. Harrell's 427 Chevy 2 made up the difference very quickly and once again beat the Ford to the finish line.
On this day, the late Dickie Harrell gave us an unforgettable Chevrolet show. Kinston Drag Strip hosted Southern-style drag racing every Sunday throughout the year. On this day, a renewal of the war between Dino Don and the Sachs and Martin team was the main attraction. As was customary in 1965, each driver made a solo pass to check things out before the first round of action began. Once again, the Mopar had the measure on Dino Don's Mercury. The crane-cammed 427 Mercury stood quietly as attention was focused on the altered wheelbase Hemi Plymouth. About the only thing the Sachs and Martin team had to do was repack their chute, and they were ready for another go-around. This kind of side-by-side action sent no one home disappointed. Piedmont Dragway's Bobby Starr clears away a large group of spectators as Sachs launches the big Hemi on a solo pass. Fast Eddie Shortman in his 427 Wedge AFX Comet was meeting Richard Petty in his updated 43 Junior Cuda. The front wheels lifted each time Eddie banged the gears in the little Comet a-go-go. Petty's injected Cuda made a lot of horsepower on the top end to overtake the quick Comet. In the next round, the little Comet pulled a gigantic hole shot on Petty and held on for the win. Familiar faces were once again racing at Piedmont during June of 1965. This time, however, Dickie Harrells had his hands full with Petty's Cuda. The North Carolina racer was not about to let the Chevy be a winner this time around. As the starter leaps into the air, he sends these two drivers on into the pages of history.
The end of June brings another visitor from the West. This is a 1964 Chevelle owned by California racer Tom Stern. The Chevy is using a new Mark IV 396 big block Chevrolet engine, and driver Larry Reyes runs in a 9-second zone.
Sox had just converted his former Superstock Plymouth to an older wheelbase car and had no trouble in the first round.
After the success of the 65 event, Bristol was chosen to host the second annual NHRA Spring Nationals during the first week of June in 1966. An enthusiastic overflow crowd greeted the racers who had come from all parts of the country with the hope of securing a place in history as a national event champion.
Thunder Valley was about to witness the future as the innovative Jack Chrisman wheeled his 66 Comet Roadster to the starting line. This blown beast unleashed an 8.82 second, 182 mile per hour attack on the asphalt track. Another feature was the Hearst Harry Oldsmobile. This car was powered by two Oldsmobile engines and ran on nitro. The crown jewel of the Hearst entertainment program, however, was the introduction of Linda Vaughn as Miss Hearst Golden Shifter. Her popularity would span 4 decades as she became an ambassador for the drag racing community.
This is the Superstock pit area at the 1967 NHRA Spring Nationals of Bristol. Now, class runoffs are scheduled for Saturday, June 10th, and the Superstock Eliminator will take place on Sunday, June 11th.
Bill Finn's Yankee Peddler was there, and in case you want to know, Dave Strickler was driving Sox's number 836 Superstock B car. Lots of Fords out too. Ed Terry, the Ulrey brothers. Now here's Sox's 835 car, and there's Dick Landy. Boy, I'll tell you, just about every big name was there. Sox going off with his Superstock B car. That's the 835 car.
This is the Superstock C Class Championship run at the 67 Spring Nationals of Bristol, and we see the Sox and Martin Plymouth get the win over Arlen Vanke.
And that sets a stage for our final eliminations, and we're going to begin with Superstock. And here are our final round competitors. On the outside, the Sox and Martin team. That's Jake King turning the wrenches, Ronnie Sox in the driver's seat, and Buddy Martin, the team coordinator, going against Ron Mancini here on the inside with his 1963 Plymouth car. Now you can see Mancini is running in the Superstock B automatic class, and Sox, his 835 car, running in Superstock B, that's the stick class. And the cars will come up to the starting line with a handicap start going over to Mancini. Sox in pursuit with that big 4-speed car. On the top end is too close to call. The electronic eyes say Sox is the winner, with an 1134 to an 1154 for Mancini. Okay, well, we're standing here with Ronnie Socks, and Ronnie, we're profiling today the 1967 Spring Nationals at Bristol, and you were one of those competitors at the race, and when we get down to the final rounds of elimination, there you were in a super stock car. Do you remember that race?
Yeah, what I recall most about that race is that was our return back to Superstock. You know, we had been running the funny cars for a couple of years before that, the altered wheelbase car and then the fuel Barracuda. Chrysler decided that, you know, those are not the type cars they were selling and interested in promoting, so they had us go back into Superstock. And I hadn't driven those type cars in a pretty good while, but I was real familiar with them because I had one I drove on the street, and I was real familiar with the 4-speed, so I was pretty comfortable getting back into it. And as I recall, I ran Mancini in the finals, and it was a close race. I mean, it was like 1 or 2 thousandths of a second. I beat him just a little bit on the starting line, and that's the way we stayed all the way through. It was a heck of a race, and it got us pumped up getting back into Superstock.
Yeah, you're saying prior to that you were running funny cars, and that was heads up, run as fast as you could go, huh?
Oh yeah, and it was definitely heads up, and then in the Superstock ranks, you were allowed to go 1/10 below your national record.
Right.
And so that came into play.
So that was a little bit different for you. You actually had to make sure that you didn't go too fast. How were you able to make an adjustment that quickly and end up being an event winner so fast?
Well, it takes a lot of practice, and it also takes a little luck.
Yeah.
Little luck's got a lot to do with it. When you start dealing within thousandths of a second, somebody's in there with you helping you make those decisions. And but I did do a lot of running during the week and was real familiar with the car, and I knew just about what it was going to run.
Now, on an importance level, as far as that race for you, big race to come back and win one in Superstock Eliminator now, since Chrysler was sort of pointing you in that direction?
Definitely, because it was a big letdown for us. See, I was all pumped up driving the funny cars, and everybody thought it was a big letdown for us going back into Superstock.
Yeah.
But after winning that race and seeing how much fun it was back driving a 4-speed car in competition, I really got the bug again, and we had several good years after that.
I also had a chance to interview Buddy Morton, and Buddy gave me his take on returning to Superstock racing for the Chrysler Corporation.
Well, what happened was, you know, we raced the altered wheelbase car in '65, and then we went over to the Barracuda fuel car in '66 and was running the funny car. And one day Chrysler said, hey, we need to sit down and talk because we haven't sold many fuel funny cars this year. Let's talk about something that we can sell. And so we just really, Landy and Jerry Gross and Bob Cahill and Reeker and ourselves, you know, sat down and started pitching out ideas and so forth. And I really don't know who exactly came up with the idea of let's do the clinics, let's go back to the Superstock cars. But at first, I don't mind telling you, both Landy and ourselves were hesitant about going back to Superstock because, you know, we knew that Nicholson and, you know, all the other guys were going to be running the funny cars, and here we were going to be back in a group of people in Superstocks. But we said, hey, we'll do it. And I guess probably, as I told someone yesterday, the thing that probably means more to me than anything else was the Spring Nationals at Bristol in 1967. The first year that we went back to the Superstocks, we were able to go there and set low ET, top speed, win the class, and win the Eliminator. And that was an outstanding feeling, I don't mind telling you.
So that finishes our look at the 1964 to 1967 Superstock and FX era. Now, we hope you enjoyed the show, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel where the memories of the early days of drag racing come to life.